Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks for being here. I have a very special guest who's joining me, Ryan. We're going to talk a little bit about service work and work, so that's great. But before we get into all of this, if you could, please like and subscribe. That really goes a long way in showing us what we're making, and if what you like, if we're making what you like. And make comments. Love to see the comments, and we can certainly make videos based on things you tell us or things you don't like, things you do like. But if you could take the time to do that, I'd really appreciate that. Anyway, friend of mine, Ryan,
Hello.
who I've known for, 6-7 years, something like that, I guess,
Something
would
like
be
that.
a good gauge.
Yeah.
But Ryan and I were talking a little bit about what we could share on. And Ryan, why don't you talk a little bit about your background, where you came from, how you got to here?
Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Ryan O'Shaughnessy. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm the youngest of four. Grew up in just kind of your average. I don't know. Average wouldn't be quite the right word. I come from a pretty broken family.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I served as a St. Paul's outreach missionary. I had a pretty dramatic conversion in college.
Where'd you go to college?
University of St. Thomas.
Okay.
In St. Paul, Minnesota. Yeah. So went to college, not really knowing what kind of direction my life was going to go in. Was pretty disillusioned. I studied physics in college, and got like halfway through and was like, well, it's too late to, pull it back now. So I finished the degree, but within college I had came to know the Lord. So I didn't grow up really in a very religious household.
Okay.
And so just faith was kind of like peripherally on the life of my family. But yeah, as a teenager, I spent a lot of time as like a pretty angry, angsty atheist. Went to college, had a pretty powerful conversion there, and that changed really the whole trajectory of my life. I was going into college interested in being a physics teacher just because I had a really good high school physics teacher.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't have a whole lot of guidance.
It sounds good at the time.
Yeah, I was like, all right, yeah. And so I was your typical like adrift millennial who doesn't have a whole lot of direction, and then, everybody's telling you to go to college, and so I went to college, and but I'm really grateful for that experience in college, even though I came out of it with a good amount of student loan debt. Mm-hmm. Like that my time in college and encountering Christ and the Catholic Church really changed the whole trajectory of my life. So in a way, I'm very grateful.
And how did you get to serve at St. Paul's Outreach out of that then?
Yeah.
If you went into college being an atheist, and you basically came out of college and went to St. Paul's Outreach,
to be a missionary.
That's how did you get there?
So throughout high school, just because a lot of the wounds of my family life, I was a pretty like solitary kid.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time alone, like putting up walls between myself and my family, just because it felt like a not safe environment. I just never really got close with a lot of people in my family. But because of that, I really just became a slave to sin in a lot of ways. I'm trying to medicate the pain and the loneliness and everything that comes along with being a child of divorce. And in high school, I really experienced the emptiness of that. God really started to work on my heart and show me is this really the life you want to look back on? Right. And I had to answer. I was kind of at a crossroads moment, and so going into college, I think I was a lot more open to faith because I realized everything else was so empty, and I realized I'd been really tricked by the world in a lot of ways. And so going into college, I was just more open to questions of faith. Just through God's grace, I encountered a lot of people in college who were joyful Christians, and their witness really just struck me because I'd never seen people who believed something that on the surface seemed so crazy. Right. That you believe that you have a relationship with Jesus who died 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And it's
it makes no sense.
But you pray, you talk to him, and so I was like, you guys are nuts. But yet at the same time, they were the most peaceful, joyful people I knew, and so it was through those relationships that I started to open up and kind of coming to the end of my rope with realizing in so many ways I was still enslaved to sin.
Okay.
At a certain point, I was like, God is my last resort. And so I prayed, and I got invited on a retreat. And it was on that retreat that I welcomed the Lord into my life. And so that changed like the whole trajectory. And I remember senior year when I was trying to figure out what the next step was, I was reading through the Gospel of Matthew, and in Matthew 9, there's this point where Jesus is looking on the crowds of people, and it says that his heart was moved with pity for the crowds because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And I was like, that's the way that God looks at me,
right.
That his like heart is moved with pity for me. It is moved with compassion for me. And I had received so much from people who had given their lives to serving the Lord and to reaching out to people like me on college campuses. And so I just felt such a conviction to want to like respond to God's invitation there to do the same thing. So, yeah, after college, I served for 5 years with St. Paul's Outreach.
Okay.
So I was at Ohio State for a year, spent 2 years at West Virginia University, and then at that point I was just starting religious life with the Brotherhood of Hope.
Right.
And one of the brothers was like, well, we could, if you still want to serve and you want to continue to discern our life, you can come to New Jersey and serve at Rutgers. And so
that's how you wound up in New Jersey. There's no other logical reason for anybody to wind up in New Jersey other than something like that.
Everybody I talked to, especially in the trade, they're like, wait, so you moved from Minnesota to New Jersey? Like,
right, on purpose.
Yeah, on purpose, yeah. Like, you're not in witness protection or anything, are you? Like, what are you doing out here?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you spent 5 years, you said at 3 different locations?
Yeah.
Okay, in SBO. What was day-to-day stuff? What were some of the challenges? What were some of the glories in like that? Because obviously people can hear service and, they hear missionary service. They don't know what that could be.
Yeah.
What was, like a thumbnail sketch of some of the things that you would do while you were in SPO?
Yeah. So a lot of it, is really just trying to like get into the lives of students and be like an older brother to them, to walk with them in their daily struggles, help them to make sense of like where is God in their lives,
right.
where is God in their time in college, what does God have for them in the future,
right?
So
it's you're out meeting people.
Yeah.
You're doing relational evangelization.
Yeah.
Are you also organizing events and things like that at the same time?
Yeah. And a lot of that is like organizing events like with like a team,
Sure.
So running like overall like big scale like campus ministry meetings, events, stuff like that. So assisting on retreats, giving talks.
Okay. Giving
talks, honestly, is one of my like favorite parts of being a missionary. Just to be able to stand in front of people and like preach the gospel.
Sure.
It's really, I've just seeing like people open up and hear the truth of the gospel and to have it move them is like.
Well, especially a fertile ground like that,
that
maybe these folks had never heard this before.
Yeah.
Or at least in the way that you're sharing it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that time, I'm sure it was challenging, but it was rewarding as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's times where it's like I can't imagine anything else I would rather do with my life.
Right.
And
then what made the transition, like how did you get out of being in St. Paul's Outreach? It sounds like you looked at the Brotherhood. Was that kind of then the transition moment? Where it was like out of St. Paul's Outreach into looking at the Brotherhood, or was there other parts of that?
Yeah. So I guess one thing that drew me to the Brotherhood was their specific like apostolate, which campus ministry. I was we've
had Brother Ken here and Brother Gene will be here shortly. So
yeah. And there's something I really love about that, and it's such like a hinge moment in a lot of people's lives, and to be able to encounter people in that time when they're like able to make a free decision for or against Christ, to be able to like walk with them in that time is really a privilege. And so there was something about the brothers that drew me. But I knew when I was in my last year with St. Paul's Outreach that I was like, I don't think this is it for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And there are people who are called to it, and it's a gift. But for me, I was like, I I don't see myself moving into being more in like a supervisory
Sure.
sort of role. But at the same time, I was getting a little too old to be like hanging out in like a college dorm.
Yeah, the little odd. Yeah.
Yeah, people had asked me. I remember going to the gym with this guy, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come back to my dorm?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll hang out." And then so I'm like 26 years old or something like that, and all these guys are like 18.
Right.
They're like, "So what are you doing here?" You know,
Yeah.
like,
A little odd.
I was like, "Yeah, I work for the Catholic Center,
Right.
and this guy's my friend." And so I'm just, I was like, "I gotta get out of here."
So you went to how long did you discern with the Brotherhood?
So I spent technically 3 years as an associate, so kind of like the base level, and then I was discerning to move in. After I left SPO, I lived with the brothers for a year, in their house in New Brunswick, and then in that time I was discerning a move to move into like candidacy. So kind of the next step. I was working full time.
Okay. Where were you working now? Is that the place down in
Yeah, so I was working at that point.
the steel place?
I was working at a steel
I
plant.
remember that. Yeah.
Steel plant in Sayreville, which so that's like a whole. That was a very formative time for me.
Sure.
And I really like look back on that time as really like there's a lot the Lord was doing there. But yeah, I discerned I was not called to the brothers. And so at that point I was like, okay, what do I do? And I didn't want to continue at the steel plant. I was like, I don't think I want to make a career out of this, And so I'd actually planned to move back to Minnesota because a friend of mine had this software startup, and I was like, well, that sounds sweet. I'll go back. I know people in Minnesota.
Sure.
I could, learn software. And so I actually started like moving in that direction. I had quit my job at the steel plant. I was telling everybody in New Jersey, I was like, yeah, I'm moving back to Minnesota. And the further, like the more I moved in that direction, and like the closer, like to my move date, I just felt less and less peace. And I could tell it was me really paving the way. It wasn't like God wasn't moving in that direction, but I was trying to move in that direction. And so there was like, God was just like, there wasn't peace. There wasn't peace in it.
It was being blocked. You were still trying to move there, but it was kind of like it was getting harder and harder.
Yeah. And
I've been there.
Yeah, and kind of to my own like dismay, even as I was telling people I'm moving back to Minnesota, my own heart was betraying me. It was like I had to come to realize like my heart was actually in New Jersey. I was like, why? Why do I want to stay in this place? Even though I'm telling people I'm moving, but part of me is like really conflicted about it. And there was a point I was maybe 2 days away from moving, and I just lost all peace about it. And I just opened myself up to the Lord and said, hey, if you want me to stay in New Jersey, I'm open to that. And even as I like uttered those words in prayer, there was just immediate peace, and actually joy and like excitement and hope about, laying down roots in New Jersey. And so, so I've just been like riding that grace for,
And then you left the steel plant, and then I know we were talking a little bit about before about you're now an electrician.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was all around that same time frame generally, because you were getting ready to move back to Minnesota, and then you were getting trained for the whole electrician thing. Is that correct, or am I off on my time frame?
There was a few years in between.
Okay.
So after I left the steel plant, I was like, okay, I'm committed to staying in New Jersey, but I don't have a job. I don't know what to do, and so through the temp agency that got me the job at the steel plant, they're like, oh, we have something else you could do. And so I worked at a Louis Vuitton warehouse for a year.
Okay.
Working on exotic shipments of
nice.
Purses, like alligator and, python.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Handbags. It was a very interesting job. Yeah. From there, after that, I worked there for about 10 months, and then I moved and actually worked in engineering for local company that a lot of the Catholic community, a lot of people work there. Spent about 2 years there, and I was excited initially for that job because it's like I had a sense that I really loved working with my hands, and part of me is like, okay, this could be a good way to get sort of a view of the construction trade, because it's like it is sort of construction, sort of adjacent like work. And it was a great company, but at the same time, I realized pretty quickly on that I just am not cut out to sit behind a desk. Like I can't just sit there and like mull over spreadsheets and emails and like reports and conference calls and everything. It was like my heart, every time I would go out into the field, I was like, my heart is in the, is like in the work, you know? I would see people like plumbers and stuff and electricians. I'm like, I really just would rather be doing what they're doing. Just like working with my hands, like laughing, having a good time.
What's interesting though, is I think there are probably more people out there that feel that pull, but they, because they don't know anything else, right? They kind of go, well, I went to college, so I should really do this whole thing, or I don't know what else to do, so I don't know, am I going to be able to survive as a plumber or an electrician, or because I've known a lot of good plumbers and electricians who make good money and work hard and they do really well. So it's funny you say that you were kind of feeling that pull, where usually that's almost the opposite. Right, where people are like, well, I really don't want to, break my back anymore. I want to get into an office.
Yeah, and a lot of guys on the trade, because they know I have a college degree, and they're like, you could, what are you doing here? Like, you got a degree? Go, like, be a project manager or something. I was like, look, I've tried being a project manager.
Maybe at some point, as you get older, it could be something you could do. But so, how long you been now doing electrical work?
So I'm going into year 4. Okay. So I'm in a 5-year apprenticeship program with the local union, and so I'm entering into year 4. So I've like done 3 full years, and I'm beginning like my 4th year.
And then what is, so you're basically apprenticeship. What changes after that 5th year for you? Because I don't know. Like what's then the difference?
Basically the pay.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. The pay, the level of responsibility when you go on a job, you look to is like, okay, the foreman gives you the plans, the work to do, and
he says, may the force be with you.
Have fun. So it's looking out for the younger guys, the apprentices, helping guide them and teach them. So,
and are you? I mean, it sounds like, obviously you're 4 years into this. What's your peace level with all of this? Is it the kind of thing where you go, this is where I need to be? Because it sounds like other times you were kind of feeling it was time. What's your feeling on all of that right now?
Well, if I've learned anything, it's that, God is unpredictable.
Right.
But at the same time, in other ways, he keeps you where you're at. And I actually can legitimately say I enjoy going into work. I really don't have a sense of dread going into work. I mean, it varies on the day. Some days you're like,
you don't get the Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock where
Sunday
you go,
scaries.
The Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. I used to. When I worked in an office job, because then you're like, oh, the emails are back, But with working in the trade, it's like, I'll just go on the job and pick up where I left off Friday. Right. There's not a whole lot lingering on my mind. Thank God.
So obviously it sounds like you like the work.
Yeah.
What do you like about the work? Obviously it's the physical side and stuff, but are there particular things that you're like, I love doing this, or I really just like getting into this? Is there anything particular like that?
Yeah, it's getting presented with a situation that there's not a clear.
You have to problem solve.
Yeah, problem solving, being resourceful. That's one thing. I think a gift the Lord has given me is I'm pretty resourceful with how to get something done. Yeah, it's kind of like MacGyver. Give me
That's an old reference. But
yeah. I've never actually seen the show. I just know about the whole idea. You can give me a paper clip, a rubber band,
and a water bottle, and you can stop a nuclear reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are times like that on the job where I'm just I got this, I got that, and we got to get this wire over to there. Let's figure it out. And so I love stuff like that. But yeah, just getting lost in a task. When you get up and you realize, oh man, 2 hours has passed, and you
weren't really thinking about anything else other than that. Than that task, which tells you that there's something good about that. When you can get caught up in it and not go, am I done yet?
Yeah.
Is it over?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I think trades, and you no surprise, can sometimes get a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
That guys who are in trades, they're not that smart. They have to go be an electrician or that. I think, and I mean, you would know this, that some of the people in trades are some of the smartest people I know because they have to problem solve.
Yeah.
And they have to not I can just then go do this computer program and it'll solve. No, you have to get the wire from there to there.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you could, you can confer. These are like, and they're hardworking guys.
Yeah.
Smart, hardworking guys, and do a lot of the other guys have college degrees, or are you like one of the only ones that you...
I think I'm one of the few that that I've encountered. There's guys who've made attempts at college and
Right.
were just like, yeah, it wasn't for me,
You don't need a college degree.
No.
I mean, you have one, and it probably benefits you in ways that maybe doesn't benefit some of the other guys that don't. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the trade work. My son Joshua is also doing the same thing. He didn't want to go to school. You don't have to go to school.
No.
I think that there's dignity in the work that people do, whether it was in service with SPO. Obviously, there was a lot of dignity there helping people out. But then it's like it's where the Lord calls you. And what I think is kind of fun is you said, I don't dread going to work.
Yeah.
Gosh, the people watching this, I'm sure they're going, I wish I didn't dread going to work.
Yeah. And I've had jobs where I've really dreaded going to work,
too.
and I really feel for people who are in that situation, because it is a real like cross to bear, and it's a real sacrifice.
And I think there's two things that people can learn from like that dread, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, one is sometimes it's like, well, you kind of just have to accept what's going on, and just that's life, and this is where I'm called to, and it's work is work, or maybe you do have to change what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, because I've worked with people who haven't wanted to change what they're doing. Yeah. And what I think is interesting about your story is you've, in a shorter period of time, you did a lot, right? You did service, you were working 2 companies before you got here, and now you're where you think it seems like it's right.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in sort of like I feel like I've kind of reached open waters in a certain way, and there's a way in which I really love the the way in which God is found in the ordinary, and that's something I don't think I appreciated when I was like trying to find a career after SPO. That's something that God had to convict me of his presence in the ordinary. Right. And you think of like how Jesus lived 30 years, he lived a hidden life where he just served and lived like a normal human life and went to work with St. Joseph and and just broke rocks or, built tables or whatever it is he did,
worked in his neighborhood. People knew him as the kid from Nazareth.
Yeah.
There was nothing special at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And to know that like salvation and grace is to be like found in these places. Yeah. When I became Catholic, my confirmation saint was Saint Therese.
Okay.
And there was something I encountered in her, like to do all things for love of God. Her like phrase, to do little things with great love. Right. There's a way in which my day is just rife with opportunities to do little things with great love, to do little things as an offering. And it really, I just experienced such a sense of mission in the blue collar trade, where there is a huge hunger for God, and just people know me and the job is Father Ryan, like, cause they know I'm Catholic. I'm just an active Catholic. I've never like insinuated that I'm like a priest or I'm like called whatever, but,
but that's your nickname.
They're like, Father Ryan, hey,
that's
God bless
so
you.
Funny.
And so there's little ways in which, just my presence there and just like opens up, people know I'm Catholic, and it opens up avenues for conversation. I've had some like pretty remarkable conversations, exchanges with people on the job site.
Because you're that guy that you saw when you were in college.
Yeah.
You were that peaceful, happy Christian that drew people, that drew you. Yeah. So now on a job site, you're that guy for people.
Yeah.
And I think you're right though in the whole ordinary thing and in and the thing is, you don't have to, like in SPO, you were specifically going out and trying to share the gospel with people.
Yeah.
This, you're not specifically sharing the gospel with people because you'd never get any work done.
Right.
But it's part of what you do.
Yeah.
And you do it explicitly as well as implicitly, just in the things that you do. And you offer, if we all do it right, we're offering things up. We're aware of where God is as you're pulling wire or you're doing, whatever it is that you're working on. So we don't need to go out there and be standing on a street corner and preaching the gospel to be able to serve the Lord. So I think it's interesting in your transition from being a service and SPO to here. you're serving the Lord, but just in different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
And that never stopped.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, it doesn't have to be that whole, doesn't have to be something so explicit. So we got to wrap up here in just a minute, which is cool. But so going forward, right, you're going to finish out this next year. So you don't see any shift really in what you're doing.
No, I mean, other than, the job that I'm on specifically might change, you know, but I'll still be, because I'm with the union, it's like I was explaining before the podcast, I'm basically like a temp worker my whole career. So I get like transferred from job to job to job to job. So I could be, doing like really big refinery work one day, and then the next day or the next month be in a school,
right?
In a
hospital,
hospital.
You never know.
Yeah. So the scenery will change, but just
that's awesome.
God doesn't change.
And that's absolutely, But work, work is work, and work can be a place where we can find God wherever it is. But anyway, got to wrap up. Thank you, Ryan, for being here. Really appreciate it. This is awesome. But again, if you can, please like and subscribe. Leave some comments about Ryan, about this discussion. If there's things if you want Ryan to come back, please, we'll have him come back. We'll have him talk about more stuff. We have more stories we can share. Short amount of time, but we'd have him come back and share more. So again, if you can, like, subscribe, share, and comment, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right.